Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've seen my videos before. So I had an opportunity to get up with my best friend Teresa recently and found out she'd never heard of this place in our hometown, this very historical place and fascinating details about its story. If you're one of my local viewers who lives here, you may know the place, but if you don't, it's a location in Bagdad, Florida called the Bagdad Mill Site, which used to be a very successful lumber yard 83 years ago, and it stayed in business for nearly 150 years. Before I get into the story and show you some of the footage we shot today, I want to tell you a little bit about Teresa, as I have never really introduced her other than being my best friend. We have known each other since age 6. Put it this way, we have been friends so long, people all the time mistake us for sisters. As a matter of fact, it happened to us during the making of this video, when a couple out walking asked if we were sisters. And sometimes we just tell them, yep. It's a shorter conversation with a stranger, and we consider ourselves sisters anyway. So she and I are in the talks about creating a new channel as a collaborating team, and our plan is to focus on the paranormal. And as of now, that's really all I can announce until I get the channel up and running with her. But anyways, Teresa has appeared in several of my videos, especially the content I have created for the ones in New Orleans. I swear it's the mecca for the paranormal. She is the one who used her phone and captured an EVP outside of the Rampart Street murder apartment a few years ago on one of our trips. And here's that video. Which Teresa did perform a short session with her phone. We had no idea we would catch an EVP, but we did.
See Bloody Mary?
Hello, is there anybody here? Addie or Zach?
We're at the Zach and Addie house.
Addie or Zach?
We're at the Zach and Addie house.
And you can find the full story about that horrible crime and the paranormal experiences we had during that trip on my channel in my content. But in this video, I'm not going to be talking about crime or the paranormal, because it's history time.
History of Baghdad.
Because Teresa had never heard of the Bagdad Mill Site, we decided to visit and film on location. But first, allow me to give you some background information about my hometown and the historic district within it. During the settlement period, in the early 1800s, my hometown of Milton, Florida, went through a number of different names, one being more of a nickname, Scratch Ankle, because of the briars that grew along the riverbanks, and another, Helltown, another reference nickname due to the humidity, the inhospitable nature of briar patches and thorn coverage, mosquitoes and other bugs, and snakes. Oh, and alligators too. There were other names as well, and there are different versions of the truth as to the origins of how the town received its official title, because of the lumber industry. But the most common belief, and the one that makes the most sense, is that in 1839 it was commonly being referred to as two words, Mill Town, because of the lumber industry. And by 1844, the official name became a derivative of what it is known as today, Milton. If you've never heard of Milton, it is just northeast of Pensacola, Florida, and also considered part of the Pensacola metropolitan area. Bagdad is a very historic, small community. Earlier settlers actually referred to it as a village, and located within my hometown of Milton. Although the small town dates back to the 1820s, when Native Americans still lived there, it was officially settled in 1840, when a sawmill was established there by an entrepreneur from Connecticut named Joseph Forsyth. But before the lumber mill was built in Bagdad, Forsyth purchased another piece of land in 1828, in which he would eventually partner up with a couple of other men, brothers Andrew and Ezekiel Simpson, forming the Forsyth and Simpson Company, who purchased slaves to build the Arcadia Mill, the first and largest water-powered industrial complex in the state of Florida. Today, it is another historical park here within my community that includes a museum and nature walk and is located off of Highway 90 in Pace, Florida, along Pond Creek. The Arcadia Mill operated for 38 years as a sawmill, a lumber mill, a grist mill, a shingle and cotton textile mill, a bucket and pail factory, and a silk cultivation operation, which shaped Northwest Florida's political and economic success, made successful by the slaves who constructed it within the confinements of indentured servitude. By 1840, Forsyth and his partners moved their sawmill facilities downstream where the waters of Pond Creek at Arcadia empties into the Blackwater River, for a more strategic location where Bagdad was developed as a lumber mill community. The site was named the Bagdad Land and Lumber Company, but was more commonly known as the Bagdad Lumber Mill, which operated from 1840 to 1939. It operated for almost 150 years, and the mill became a major port during the early 19th century. Back then, Bagdad was considered the place to seek prosperity. The mill served as a variety of industrial operations, most notably as a very big lumber mill that shipped West Florida lumber to ports all over the world. With the new mill, Forsyth decided to employ skilled laborers from up north instead of enslaved men or local unskilled white men. The operations associated with the lumber mill created an infrastructure for housing, factories, exporting, and freight handling that sustained the livelihoods of the village residents. In addition to the lumber mill, Forsyth purchased the shipyard in 1853 for $750, which had changed ownership several times since being built as Baghdad's first major shipyard in 1833 by Captain John Gardner. When Forsyth died 2 years later in 1855, the company reorganized and renamed it to E. Simpson and Company. By the early 1860s, on the eve of the Civil War, the mill produced $250,000 worth of products and employed 150 workers. In 1861, Confederate President Jefferson Davis authorized the construction of 3 gunboats and gave one of the contracts to a couple of fellows named William Ollinger and Martin Bruce, who in 1858 built a repair facility and marine railway at Baghdad Shipyard Point, which operated for 60 years. In the first couple of years during the Civil War, the mill continued to prosper, but in March of 1862, the gunboat and shipyard were destroyed by Confederate forces, including burning down the buildings of the community, anything of value to keep from falling into Union hands, including setting fire to and destroying a 110-foot gunboat. However, in order to save the 500-ton dry dock, workers at the mill sank it beneath the surface of the Blackwater River. I read an article online that some folks around here from back then weren't too keen about their communities being destroyed, that maybe it would have been best to take their chances on losing to the Union. I mean, what kind of sense does it make to burn your own stuff just to keep someone else from touching it? So I'm with the townfolk of my past on this one. In that same article, I read about a man named Mr. A.C. Blunt, who was one of the angry citizens who wrote a letter to the governor describing the actions of the Confederates as wanton and atrocious vandalism. Around 1862, to keep Union hands off of their shipping boats, I guess, or their maybe their ironclads, I don't know. They sunk them on purpose in this river. So you can imagine if you drained this river what you would find. During the war, most Baghdad residents fled to Greenville, Alabama, but a man named James Creary stayed behind to watch over what was left of the property. Eventually, he was captured by Union scouts and briefly imprisoned at the Union-held Fort Pickens in Pensacola, one of the few forts in the South that remained under Union control throughout the Civil War. James Creary was in partnership with the Simpson brothers, Andrew and Ezekiel, and with 2 other men, Benjamin Overman and Benjamin Thompson, who helped build the mill. I did my best to look it up, but being that Joseph Forsyth was married to a Cordelia Creary, I am guessing he was maybe Forsyth's brother-in-law, but I am not 100% certain. A few years after the war ended, during the Reconstruction era, the shipyard reopened in 1867 as the Ollinger and Bruce Shipyard. By the turn of the century, the mill shipped more yellow pine lumber than any port in the world. The longleaf yellow pine forest brought vast wealth and fortune from the lumber industry for the leading citizens of Santa Rosa County, Florida. During the 20th century, the Bagdad Lumber Company was one of America's largest and most modern lumber mills. But by 1939, rough times finally took its toll on the site due to the depletion of old-growth pine and the effects of the Great Depression, which led to its demise, and it shut down forever. All around here used to be where other buildings, including buildings like homes, were built for the lumber companies. When the mill shut down, Bagdad became a ghost town and dwindled in population as families moved away to find work elsewhere. The one-time prosperous company was left vacant and empty of its dwellings and went silent for decades. Today, Bagdad is mainly known for its smaller population and was designated in 1987 as the Bagdad Village Historic District and registered as a U.S. Historic District. It contains 143 historic buildings that still remain in the small community today. A lot of the homes actually were either relocated, like the Thompson House, and I'll show you a picture of the Thompson House. Okay, the Thompson House is an antebellum home. It was constructed in 1847, circa 1847, by Benjamin Woodson Thompson, who lived from 1809 to 1876 and was a partner in the Forsyth and Simpson Sawmill enterprise in Bagdad. It is also one of the best remaining Florida Panhandle examples of a symmetrical Greek Revival structure. During the Civil War, Union troops from the 2nd Maine Cavalry, 1st Florida Cavalry, 19th Iowa Infantry, and United States Colored Troops of the 25th, 82nd, and 86th Regiments raided Bagdad and Milton and camped in around the house, leaving graffiti including drawings and signatures on the plaster walls. In 1913, the house, which originally faced the Blackwater River, was moved directly back to its present location when the mill complex expanded. In the year 2000, the 20-acre waterfront site was acquired by the State of Florida Board of Trustees, and in 2004 was leased to Santa Rosa County to develop as a recreational area, and its grand opening took place in May of 2016. It is now a place of leisure where people can visit to enjoy the river, have barbecues, and get exercise from walking the trails and the boardwalks along the Blackwater River. You can also observe the wildlife like feral cats, turtles, just beware of venomous snakes, and of course, the many alligators. And yes, people swim in the water at their own risk. You see a kitty? Where?
In the rocks over there.
Oh, I do too. There he is.
It's a panther.
Panthers. Florida
Yeah,
Panthers.
panther come up.
That was our
Spread like
mascot
that
at our
cat. There
high
you go.
school. Somebody's taking real good care of you. All that food. Oh, there's another cat. Right there. Another Florida Panther, everybody. Yeah. Help preserve the past. The Blackwater River flows for 56 miles from its headwaters in southern Alabama to Blackwater Bay. This is a kayak launching site. If you wanted to go kayaking with the gators, you just come here. Blackwater River. And
Big gator.
I'm just kidding. But no, for real, there are gators. History on Blackwater.
Lumber, saws, and ships.
Modern industry on the Blackwater River centers on river leisure activities, and you are invited to boat, fish, kayak, picnic, water ski, swim, and enjoy our river and our gators. There is one amenity in the park that kids get a real kick out of. I imagine some adults too. It's a huge, grassy mound located on the site that people can climb to the top, then roll themselves down the hill. And I have heard people refer to it as our Florida mountain. And if you know anything about Florida, it's probably the flattest state in the U.S. So for us, it's as good as it gets. With it being Teresa's first time visiting, she kind of laughed at me when I told her people called it the Florida mountain. We're getting closer to the mountain. This is the Florida mountain, and we're going to attempt
I think
to...
you're the only one that calls it that, by the way.
That's where I'm going to summon it. I'm going to make it. Okay. Are you ready? You ready? You ready? I'm going to climb this really tall mountain in Florida.
I don't know, those wicked windstorms are brewing. They're blowing. I don't think she's gonna make it. Yep, no, she ain't gonna make this. Oh. Gotta have a flag or something if you make it to the summit.
Okay, it'll be imaginary. Wait, I can put it in later. So I told you how Milton got its name, but do you know how Baghdad was named? Last year, I actually covered a local crime story on my channel where I venture into Baghdad and mention how it received its name. Right as we were leaving the park, Teresa noticed one of the many informational marker posts and was rather surprised at the answer.
It's actually named after Baghdad, the country.
Oh, I know that. You know, I told that in a video. You know why, right?
Well, I do now.
This town lies in between two rivers.
And they built
The
it to
Blackwater,
resemble-
the creek, Pond Creek.
and Tigris and Euphrates.
Tigris and Euphrates in Baghdad and Iraq, so that's why.